Well, hello everybody. Today is Monday, May the 12th, and I hope everybody had a wonderful Mother's Day this past Sunday. So let me get right into it. Got a lot to cover today. I'm going to try to zip through it pretty quick, not kind of bore you with too many details. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is citizen questions and concerns. That's the primary reason why I do this video, is I get calls, emails, bump into people on the street where they make express an issue or concern, and my feeling is if they've got an issue with it, there's probably somebody else, and we need to sort of talk about that. Going to go talk a little bit about some city business, a little bit about economic development, some mayor stuff that I got going on throughout the month of May, some upcoming city events. Then I'm going to end up with a little talk about Memorial Day and the upcoming Memorial Day holiday. So let me get right on into it. So citizen concerns. I got a email a week before last, and someone expressed some concern about what they perceived was police harassment. I'm not going to go into detail on the event or what was said, but if somebody brings up the issue of police harassment, I take that seriously. We're not going to have police harassment in the city of Columbiana. And I also feel that I have an obligation to investigate it, which we did. And if I didn't, and subsequently there were lawsuits or anything, the city of Columbiana and even myself could be potentially liable if we did not address the concern and take appropriate action. So we initiated an investigation. And the good news is nowadays, or one of the helpful things is we have body cameras on our police, and we can see what goes on and we can hear what goes on. And what was interesting about this was the incident that was described in the email versus what we saw on the body cam weren't even close. They weren't even the same thing. It didn't happen in the same location. The events that were described did not occur. And at the end of the day, it involved an issue of a vehicle being pulled over by the police for basically doing something that was inappropriate, unsafe. And rather than harassment, the police officer stopped the vehicle, talked to the driver. They were given a verbal warning. They were not even given a citation. And so there really was no harassment there. But once again, if you believe that you're being harassed by the Columbiana Police Department, don't hesitate to reach out to me. We're going to look into it. Chief Bowers will look into it. He's concerned about it as well. It's not something that we're going to tolerate. Just want to let everybody know that in this particular case, it wasn't founded. It was interesting, during the investigation, we asked the person who made the complaint, did you actually see any of this happen? And the response was, no, this is what was told to me. And so my comment there would be to trust but verify. I know you have people that you trust, and you have friends who will tell you stories, and sometimes they will hear it from somebody else. And by the time this story gets retold several times, it probably doesn't even resemble what really happened. So always trust but verify. Don't necessarily take everything you hear at face value. Okay, sidewalks. I've gotten some complaints where people have come up and talked to me about the condition of the city of Columbiana sidewalks. I also got a letter from a resident who was asking us to build more sidewalks. I'm not a fan of sidewalks. Sidewalks are very expensive. They're very expensive to maintain and difficult to upkeep. Now, the photograph on this particular chart is sort of an extreme example, but we have these examples all around Columbiana, particularly with our older sidewalks and our what I'll call our legacy neighborhoods, and that is tree roots. These sidewalks are adjacent to trees, very, very close to them, and the tree roots are tearing up these sidewalks. Now, I love my big trees in my yard, and I know a lot of people do, but if we're going to build more sidewalks, we're going to have to ask property owners, if they want us to build a sidewalk, they're going to have to remove these trees that would potentially encroach on the sidewalks. So we're going to try to address, the problems that we can. It all is, we consider it every year when we do our city budget, and the city council has to make decisions, pros and cons. We're going to do this, we're not going to do that. But we will talk about sidewalks again when we do the budget in this particular cycle. And if we see something in a sidewalk that is clearly a hazard, we're going to try to address those things first. And something was brought to my attention recently, and I talked to our public works director and said, hey, you need to get out there and fix that because that's a safety hazard. Okay, so the next item on the agenda here is someone at a city council meeting, when we do our public comments at the end, is a school bus driver and was complaining about the road, Industrial Parkway, and it's the section of the road where you turn right off of Depot Street by the middle school and you continue down Industrial Parkway, and it exits out on, terminates on County Road 47. And the issue was, number one, the width, and then number two, there's no shoulder, and it's very dangerous. It's such a narrow road for two-way traffic, and the school bus has a difficult time passing. And what he's been doing is when he sees oncoming traffic, he just stops, allows them to pass, and then continues on. So if you look at this picture that I got off of the Shelby County GIS, you'll see the area of Industrial Parkway that was in question. I circled an area where there's basically no shoulder. The pavement runs right to a ditch and then it drops off. And then I've outlined an area with this heavy green line. And the reason I did that is right-of-way that belongs to Norfolk Southern Railroad. And the railroad has a great deal of power and authority over what goes on in their rights-of-way. In fact, they actually have their own police force. And they can tell us to get out of there, and they have in the past if we're trying to work something. I had an issue, I don't know, a year or so ago. Bus driver was concerned about the potholes at the railroad crossing there going to the middle school. It took me a very, very long time to get Norfolk Southern to go patch those potholes because we couldn't do it. We were not allowed to work on their tracks, and I understand it. They don't want people messing around to do anything that might potentially cause a train to derail. I wasn't really happy with the patch, but nevertheless, we got some of it done. So this is an ongoing investigation because what my questions are is if that road is inside the Norfolk Southern right-of-way, has it been dedicated and does it really belong to the city of Columbiana, even though we've paved it, done some maintenance on it for many, many years? And what I'll say is if you look at what I've outlined here, GIS, the boundaries of the various property lines are close, but they're not completely accurate. So the bottom line is a lot of work needs to be done to figure out where the public right-of-way is, what belongs to Norfolk Southern, and then have some conversations with Norfolk Southern to see what we can do as far as that. In the meantime, one of the other things that we could possibly do is talk to the Board of Education about maybe rerouting the bus route. There are homes on the far end of Industrial Parkway, and the buses need to go there, but maybe they could come in from the opposite direction instead of coming this way, and we'll see. So those are things that we'll look into and see what we can do to fix that problem. It's a problem. I'm just right now, it's a bit of a conundrum as to how we're going to fix it. Okay, so the next item is nuisances and property abatement. I've talked about this before on previous of my monthly videos, and there are things that we can do, and there are limitations as to what we can do. And so when we have nuisances, which are typically dealing with things like weeds and grass and things like that, there's really some limitations as to what we can do. We can cite people, we could go out and cut their grass for them, but it's just going to incur a lot of costs. So what we try to do is work with those property owners to get them to do it. If you have an old house abandoned that's falling in, we can go through a very lengthy and expensive abatement process, and then the city can come in and tear down the property or the house and then put a lien on the remaining property. Chances are we won't see anything from that lien, but we did that within the past year or so, and the property was subsequently sold, and we did get reimbursed our cost as a result of the lien. In the recent case, the nuisance dealt with two different properties. One of them is an abandoned home, and we have already initiated the abatement process, and I explained to the person who was concerned about it that it's a lengthy legal process and it could take 6 months to a year, but we are working on that already. And then the other one, I explained to him what we could do about the property that needed the grass cut, and that the police department would go out there and talk to them. If necessary, issue a citation. If necessary, they'd go to the municipal court and so on. But when we communicate with the property owner, the good news is they cut their grass. And so the neighbor is at least happy for the time being that some things were done about the nuisance complaint that they had. They don't always work that well. Sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to get things done. But this, and obviously we haven't solved the problem with the abandoned house yet, but it will get solved. It just, as I said, the legal process is lengthy. Okay, storm drainage. We've talked about this in the past. We've had some recent rain, a lot of heavy rain, and we have property all over the city of Columbiana that deals with storm drainage issues. And we got some money from ARPA, and we have made plans to address what we consider the most severe, which is in the photograph on this chart, which is on Depot Street. And we are having some issues with one of the property owners where we need an easement on the property to fix this storm drainage issue. And that property owner has been unwilling thus far to give us an easement. And we discussed it at our last council meeting. And that is the condemnation process, where we use the right of eminent domain to basically get that easement so that we can get this work done and solve that problem. One of the council members wanted to see firsthand. We had showed pictures like this one, go look at the property, and so we tabled that resolution that we were going to consider for the condemnation at the last council meeting to do a special session, which is tonight actually, May the 12th, to where we will vote to decide whether or not we're going to move forward with this condemnation. But we need to, because the problem needs to be resolved, and if not, we may have to give back this ARPA money that we were given, so we don't want to have to do that either. Okay, city business. We just adopted a food truck ordinance. It's much better than the ordinance we had before. It gives a lot more flexibility to the food trucks operators, and makes it a lot easier to know what you can do, what you can't do, where you can have food trucks and that sort of thing. We passed a resolution for no right on red on Main Street and College Street. There is a provision in that. I know there's some people that have expressed some concern about that. We think it's the right thing to do from a safety perspective, particularly pedestrian safety, but also traffic safety, because you can't see unless you pull out into the crosswalk to be able to see oncoming traffic to make that right turn on red. But because it's a resolution and not an ordinance, if this doesn't work out, we can change it back. It hadn't taken effect yet because the signs that we ordered haven't come in. Until we put the signs up, there'll be no effect there. And then sewer treatment plant financing. I've talked about the sewer treatment plant. We've got a portion of it financed. The majority of it is not financed. And so there's been some work going on that. I've talked to the state revolving fund folks at ADEM, Alabama Department of Environmental Management, and what they're doing is they're going to give us a proposal to finance the balance of this through the state revolving fund. And also I've talked to a couple of commercial sources. I got a proposal from one. They can't really come close to the SRF. And then I have another investment banking firm who's going to give us a proposal, who's at least talked about some options that might be something that the city would want to consider. So we're working on that. We're going to get that financing in place, we hope, by the end of July. And we'll be able to continue on with this sewer treatment plant project without any interruptions. Okay. Economic development. Two things I've talked about here in the past. One of them is the new Tractor Supply that's going to be coming to Columbiana. It's going to be located behind Dollar General and adjacent to Columbiana Square. There's going to be a rezoning public hearing at City Hall on May the 20th, Tuesday, May the 20th at 6 p.m. That's in conjunction with our normal City Council meeting. And once that's done to adopt the rezoning, essentially they have two parcels there. One of them is zoned M2, I believe. The other one was zoned B1 for business. and they wanted to consolidate them all into one zoning classification. And so what they've done is their plan is to make them all B1. And so they had a public hearing at the Planning Commission. Their recommendation is that we change it to B1. We have to have a public hearing at City Hall, and then the council will consider a modification to our zoning ordinance so that we make all that property B1. Once that's done, they will close on their property, and then they expect to break ground on sometime in July, middle to end of July. And the place, like a lot of retail places, has a lot of part-time workers, but it should be anywhere from 10 to 15 full-time equivalents. If you look at how many labor hours they would expend, a full-time equivalent is 2,080 hours a year. And so it would be the same as, they may have 30 employees, but if they're working, some of them are working part-time and a few of them are working full-time, it would be in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 full-time equivalents. There's a data center that's where a lot of work is being put together and a lot of planning being done on Industrial Parkway. It'll be one of 26 planned or either operating data centers in the state of Alabama. The owners they're involved in rate negotiations with Alabama Power Company. It's important, the power rates, they need an enormous amount of electrical power. So the availability of power and then also the rates are an important part of the business model to make this thing successful. So they're involved in that right now. And it's going to be a phased development, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, up to 350 to 400 million overall. And at the end of this thing, it could create more than 75 full-time equivalent jobs in Columbiana. So that'd be great news when that happens. So looking forward to that. Some mayor stuff. I think I mentioned this maybe in the last video. In the last video, I was telling you what I was going to do, so now I'm going to tell you what I did. On April 21st, I went to the Washington Update for Congressman Gary Palmer. That was hosted by several different chambers of commerce and organizations within the 6th Congressional District. And so we have a table, the City of Columbiana has a table at these functions that are hosted by the Shelby County Chamber. So myself, some city officials, city employees went to the Washington Update. I had a chance to talk to Congressman Palmer prior to his talk. And the good news is it was a good conversation, and he told me he was planning on coming and visiting us in Columbiana on Liberty Day. So look forward to seeing him there on Liberty Day. And if you see Congressman Palmer walking around, go up and say hello. So the next day, Congressman Palmer had something that he does every quarter, and that's a mayor's luncheon for all the mayors in his district. And so I had a chance to attend that as well the next day. That is really a better venue as far as I'm concerned, because it allows us to have some direct communication and talk about issues affecting us with the congressman. If you look at this photograph that's on this chart, again, this is open to all the mayors within his congressional district, but good turnout here from the Shelby County mayors. I'm going to try to go around this table. The way this thing was says, Congressman Palmer is sitting on the far end with three members of his staff. He's on the right-hand side. And then going from the bottom around to the left, you can see the shiny head of Mayor D'Angelo Perkins of Harpersville. Next to him is Mike Oakley, who's from Centerville, not in Shelby County, but Mike's a good friend and a good guy, and he was there. Next to Mike is Steve Gilbert, who's actually the city clerk of Montevallo. Rusty Nix wasn't able to be there, and he was representing Rusty. Then you've got myself. And if you go down to the far end of the left side of this table, you can see, starting at the very end, barely, you can see, it's a small photograph, I know, Mayor Frank Bricado from Hoover. He kind of represents two counties. Hoover's pretty much split equally between Jefferson and Shelby County. Next to Frank is Tony Picklesheimer. He's the outgoing mayor of Chelsea. And next to him is Larry Riggins, who's the outgoing mayor also of Westover. Can't really tell in the photograph myself, but I think that's Brenda Bell Garcio, who is the mayor of Indian Springs. So had a good representation from Shelby County there. On May the 1st, I attended the Greater Birmingham Mayor's Prayer Breakfast. I've really enjoyed going to those. There is really a role that is played by faith-based organizations in all of our communities. And this prayer breakfast is a good opportunity for the mayors to interact with those faith leaders and listen to some inspiring talks about how they help all of our communities. So once again, in this photo, you can see Theo Perkins from Harpersville. Next to him is Stan Hoagland, who is actually from Gardendale. Myself, Mayor Woodfin from Birmingham. Frank Mercado again from Hoover. You got Stuart Welch from Mountain Brook. You got Deborah Hudson from Wilton, and then you've got James Stewart from Irondale in here, so in this little photograph. Tomorrow, I'm leaving to head up to the annual convention for the Alabama League of Municipalities. That's really something that, again, I think is very beneficial to mayors. We have an opportunity to interact with state-level officials, city leaders from all across the state of Alabama, mayors, city council members, clerks, etc. And we learn about what kind of issues that we have in common, how each of these communities are doing things, in addition to all of the training and things that we learn about how we're supposed to do things in the state of Alabama. So looking forward to that, May 13th through the 15th. Upcoming events. All right, so in the month of June, it's going to be rocking and rolling in Columbiana. So we have the Sunset Market, which is the farmers market on Main Street in collaboration with Music on Main. That starts on June the 6th, and it runs June 6, 13, and 20, then July 11 and 18. And then at the end of June, we have Liberty Day on June 27th and 28th. It kicks off Friday evening with a concert on Main Street on June 27th. This year, a group called the Heather Hayes Experience. And then our headliner on Saturday at the football stadium is Easton Corbin. Easton Corbin, 2010-2020 timeframe. Very, very popular country music artist. Had a couple of #1 hits on the country chart. So we're looking forward to concert with Easton Corbin. So June's going to be a happening month. All right, let me wrap up with a comment about Memorial Day. So Monday, May 26th is when we celebrate Memorial Day this year. A photograph here you can see is the Henry Chappell American Cemetery in Hamburg, Belgium. My namesake, my uncle, is buried in this particular cemetery. He was killed in the Battle of the Bulge in World War II. And there are 8,000 other American heroes who were buried in this cemetery alongside him. So Memorial Day is, in some respects, is intended to be somewhat of a somber holiday, because what we do is we recognize those who have given their last full measure of devotion and sacrificed their lives in the service of this country to keep us free and in the fight against tyranny and injustice. And so this Memorial Day, May 26th, remember those, but also remember it's a celebration. It's a celebration of the liberties that we enjoy because of the sacrifices that they made. Now, I had devoted my Mayor's Monthly video in 2023 entirely to Memorial Day. Talked about some of the background behind the history of Memorial Day, what some of the celebration customs are, for example, why we wear poppies on Memorial Day, and talked about some folks who had special meaning to me on Memorial Day. Again, what's really great about Memorial Day is that we live in a country to where all of us know somebody or have a relative or a friend that has given that sacrifice and has been willing to serve and do what it takes. And that's what makes it very, very a special holiday for us. So if you have an opportunity, hunt back on the city website. Again, going back to this chart here, you'll see the picture of the city's webpage on the bottom left side of that picture. there's a icon or a button you can click on that takes you to the Mayor's Monthly Videos. If you want to watch that May 23 video again about Memorial Day, you can click on that and you can scroll down and you can find it. So that's pretty much it for May. A lot going on, particularly coming as the summer starts. So everybody be safe. Hope you have a great rest of your month of May, a great Memorial Day, and I'll see you next month.